that were the positives, in my life, were the last strings that you would hold on to that, kept me from making some of those decisions. And certainly don't realize that lots of lessons that were learned through those experiences that help carry you through life. Understand or believe that it's for a reason, it's for a purpose. We may not know what it is now, we may never know, but those things have been put in our life for a reason, so that we're given tools for whatever the next challenge is going to be, what our calling is going to be.
Today, we have a very special guest who I think went through a lot of adversity and definitely qualifies for being a guest on this show. I think you're going to learn a lot about life from my friend Dan Mason. He's the executive vice president and the principal for Warranty Corp. He is also one of the founders and a board member of the Ethical F&I Managers Conference. So his intentions are good. He's a good, high moral standard character. And without any more waste of time, I want to introduce you to my friend Dan Mason. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Good morning, Velko. How you doing?
Doing really well. So I was looking forward to this interview and just to getting to know you more, and for all the group members to get to know you and learn about your story, and hopefully get inspired to keep the faith and keep the fight, right? And to never, ever, ever give up. So then would you take us way back? What I would like to know is, tell me a little bit about your parents, about your mom, about your dad. And then if you could also go back to their parents, what do you know about them?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So it starts with, I was actually adopted. So my actual real parents, I don't know much about. I know that my birth mother was addicted to drugs and alcohol all through the pregnancy. So I really wasn't even supposed to be born, from what I know. So I fought just to get out, I guess, and welcome myself to the world. My adopted parents were heavily involved in drugs and alcohol and different types of addictions there. They divorced when I was 6 or 7. I ended up living with my mom, and by really the age of 14, I was on my own, dealing with a mother that's main priorities in life were drugs and alcohol, and using me as a whipping post, if you will. Finally made the decision at 14, maybe 15, that I didn't like the person I was when I was in that environment, and so I ventured out on my own.
Wow, that's tough. So what about grandparents? Do you remember any connection with grandparents?
Yeah, from the family that I knew, the adopted family. Grandparents, they were originally from New York. My grandfather was in the pool business in Florida. I'm originally from South Florida. My grandmother fought with dementia towards the end of her time, and so that was pretty tough. Couple aunts and uncles, and at the time they didn't really understand how difficult the situation was for me at home. Obviously now later in life they certainly understand what how tough some of that was, but really from a family standpoint, once I was really 14, 15 years old, it was me fending for myself for a long time.
What is your earliest memory? What was the first conscious moment when you realized you were you?
Wow, that's I have some memories probably around 5, 6 years old. I lived in Coral Springs, Florida. One of my vivid memories from back then is an experience that was really weird. Where my house was, there was a cul-de-sac across the street. I'm out playing in the cul-de-sac. My mom comes out and yelling at me to get inside the house because it's pouring raining. Well, only on that side of the street. It wasn't in the cul-de-sac, and the line of rain was literally down the middle of the street.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's your first core memory.
That's one of my first memories, yeah.
So do you feel that your life started at 14 when you started on your own, or you have kind of like two lives before you go on your own and after you run your own? Or?
Life started before that with some memories, with my mother's difficulties with her addictions. We were evicted quite often, and I had to move quite a bit.
Mm.
So I think I went to five different elementary schools, and then there was even lapse in time of me actually going to school. I think for about a year and a half. When we finally went back to school, I had to test to see if I could stay in the grade I was supposed to be in. Then there's certainly the time period of venturing out on my own, and when you go through that, you don't necessarily go the right way in life first. And then I would tell you that through my success in the car business, that's probably my third life.
Well, you still got quite a few more. Life made you tough. Tell me a little bit about these moments with the addiction. What was she addicted to? What was her drug of choice?
Many, marijuana, cocaine, alcohol was a really big part back then, and the combinations of those, and probably say men at some point was part of that as well. Probably as a way to facilitate the addiction, and I'm sure there were others that I probably wasn't aware of. There were certainly lots of pills around the house, whatever they may have been. So it's going back to the 80s and early 90s, it certainly was a different blend of cocktails available that are necessarily today.
Yeah. Going back in your life, what are the moments of the biggest adversity you faced when you were on the urge of giving up?
When you end up on your own at a young age, right? You want to try to stay in school because at some level that's a safe place. But thankfully, I had some really great friends and their parents that welcomed me in and gave me a couch to sleep on, or a floor to sleep on, or a warm meal. But there were certainly nights where sleeping on a park bench, or in a hallway at the school, or being from Palm Beach County, the intercoastal is there, and there were nights that I slept on the wall at the intercoastal just because it was relatively safe. Not knowing where your next meal is coming from, how you're going to make it through the next day. Those times get to be tough and dark, and there were certainly times through that I thought about giving up. It might be just easier if I'm just not here anymore. And thankfully, through some of those relationships with friends, and I was involved in music and some sports, and having those things that were the positives in my life, were the last strings that you would hold on to, that kept me from making some of those decisions. And certainly, as you don't realize it at the time it's happening, but later in life, there's lots of lessons that were learned through those experiences that help carry you through life. And certainly there were key people that entered my life in some of those darkest times, that were light, that grabbed a hold of me, and taught me about being a human being and what life could really be about.
So, do you remember some of the thoughts you had, some of the lies that were going in your mind, some of the things that were going on repeat and were really leading you to the point of giving up? And also, what was the main moment, the main reason why you chose not to give up? Or if it was a person, what did that person say? Or ticking point where you had like aha moment and you were like, all right, I'm not gonna do this stupid thing.
Yeah, great questions. The things that play in your head that leave you down the dark path are probably backing up. All I heard from my mom all the time is that, you're a screw up and you're a failure and you're never going to be anything, and, all those things. And after a while, you start to believe it. And so the thoughts that go in your head of, nobody cares, nobody loves me, I don't have a purpose, I'm not going to go anywhere, why am I doing this, right? Those things echo through your brain, and you get angry. You get angry at the world. You get angry at the people around you. You get angry at your circumstances, and it's just a spiral that's very difficult. There is a specific person at that point in my life that was the beacon of change, if you will. And I'm a drummer, and in high school was percussion and drums, and this individual realized I had some talent and got to know me a little bit, realized the difficult situation I was in, and put an arm around me, and not only taught me about playing percussion and playing drums, but taught me about life, and that there are bright spots in life. And through that, I started to find success and high level through music. And so that was really the precipice of change of, my life is empty, I have nothing, I'm going to be nothing, to, hey, wait a minute, there are people who care, and I do have some things that I can offer and things that I can be successful at. And, maybe we need to keep going with this and see where this goes, because this is a lot better than the mindset and the situation that I've been in previously.
Yeah, it's so important to have those people in your life that believe in you when you don't believe in yourself.
The hard part, in that though is when you're in that dark place, right? And this is really for anybody that could be listening that's going through similar times, and it doesn't matter if you're 14 or 44, we still go through these times. Is the difficulty becomes when you shut yourself off to everybody and everything around you in that mindset. That person could be right next to you right now that's trying to put an arm around you, but you don't want to accept it and you push it away. The negativity stays there and you don't allow those experiences to take place because we become so shut off, right? So the challenge is for anybody that's going through those difficulties is don't be afraid to let people in, right? Because we get so shelled off and covered in our corner that we push everybody away. And not everybody's out to get you or take advantage of you. God puts people in your life at certain places for a reason, and we don't always understand what that reason is at the time. But looking back through all this, I can specifically point out when certain people were in my life for a reason. Initially, I did push them away. Thankfully, they were just as stubborn as I am and kept pushing through until they got through to me to be the person to be there to help.
And you mentioned God. Where was God during those moments? What was your relationship with God?
It wasn't good back then. Being young and going through that, it's the why me, and if there is a God, why would He do this to me, put me through this, and all those types of negative thoughts. Now understanding things a little different as we grow up and we mature and we learn and we open our mind and our heart. I went through everything that I had to go through to learn the lessons that I needed to learn to be where I am today. And it takes a long time before we realize that, right? And that's the difficulty of being in it is we don't understand or believe that it's for a reason, it's for a purpose. We may not know what it is now, we may never know. Those things have been put in our life for a reason so that we're given tools for whatever the next challenge is going to be or what our calling is going to be.
Yeah, that's how I look at life. I think that life is a test of our character, and it doesn't matter what we're going through, it's developing our character. And I'm a born again Christian, so I believe in the eternal life. I feel like this is what we need to do every day, face our challenges, and blaming and complaining and excuses, having that victim mindset is the only thing that could stop us from growing and developing that character and not stay focused on the meaning of life. And what do you think makes a good character? Do you have like a elite version of yourself you're trying to reach? What are you working on as far as self-development?
For me, that's a big question. Character is a lot of things, right? And there's attributes of character with integrity and honesty and those type of things. And you talk about experiences and where they brought you and the lessons you learn and what I'm working on. Going through what I went through and realizing that those people came into my life at crucial moments to help get me to the next place I needed to get to. Is, for me, my mission is, or my definition of success, if you will, is my success is only defined by the number of other people that I can help become successful. And I look for the opportunity to be that person for others, whether it's through career, whether it's through personal, whatever it is. I tried to make myself available as a resource to anybody that needs help with anything, not necessarily related to business either. And so what I work on is continuing of that, of how can I better myself to be better positioned to help others, right? So I read a lot of different books. I do a lot of books on tape. I'm on airplanes every week, so it affords me some time to be able to do some of that. But character really is, it's interesting. It's a great question, and the fact that the world we live in today is all social media and it's all this fakeness of these personas that are online. That when you meet the people, it's not really who they are or what they're about. And character is really about the things that you do when nobody's looking, when you don't think it's for likes or followers or subscribers, or I can get 5 more people to sign up for my widget. Character is what you're doing when nobody's looking. That really matters.
Okay, that's a good definition. And a good character is so hard to describe, right?
It is.
Everyone has their own definition. To you, it's what's behind closed doors, but we don't see what's behind closed doors. So who knows? What can you explore a little bit more on what do you do behind closed doors?
It's the things behind closed doors are your different relationships, right? Your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your family and your loved ones, your relationships with your beliefs and religion and whatever that may be. It's your relationships with your friends, right? And it's how do you treat those relationships and those people. Character is about caring about others. Do I just make everything about me, or is it about those around me? And I think that's a really big part of it. There's a lot of what's in it for me out there, and what's in it for me that I can help others. And that for me is a big part of character, and doing things the right way. Do we lie, cheat, and steal in relationships and business and those types of things? Or are we honest and open and ethical and act with integrity? And do we make the tough choices to do the right thing, even though it's not the easy thing, right? As
Yeah,
opposed to taking the easy way out because, and we know it's not right, but it's the easy way. Those things I think go into character and having a great character.
this is a good definition. I'm satisfied now. So you're highlighting on relationships is what I'm getting, and authenticity. So basically do what you say you would on social media. Practice what you preach, right?
We all spend a lot of time, we're in the auto business, and there's a lot of great talkers, but there's not so many great walkers.
Yeah. How would you prioritize your relationships right now? I'm not really familiar with your personal life, neither. I mean, the viewers also are very interested in probably understanding you come from being an orphan and adopted, and not only that is a challenge on its own, but the parents were not really on point as well. And then you had to start life early, 14. By the way, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 14, so I can definitely relate to that. And now you talk about the integrity, these values. Not only that, but you're opening the curtain and you're saying it's more important to be great character behind closed doors, not for the show. And where did that transformation took place?
It's funny where that started to change. It's kind of funny because when that mindset changed, my career changed, right? And so there were two things that happened that both in career and then that led to the character change was I went to Jim Ziegler's F&I seminar, and he said something in the very beginning that stuck with me. And he starts every conference, every speech with the same story of, there I was again, unemployed and homeless, and my mattress tied to the top of the car. And he said he made two decisions that day. One, he would be a success in the business, but the second thing he said was that he was going to study his profession just like he was studying for a master's. And that part stuck with me, right? I was a very high performing finance manager, finance director, but I wasn't a student of the profession. Like, I knew nothing about compliance and all the other working mechanisms of the business. So I started that. But then the second thing that happened was, and the bigger thing that happened was when I realized that it wasn't about me, it was about everybody else around me. And I changed what my focus was in the dealership. Anybody that's watching this that's in the car business, and obviously the prima donna F&I guys and girls, and it's all about me and your paperwork's wrong and this, all those things, and the egos that go in the finance office. Guilty as charged, for a long time, until I figured out if I start making it about helping everybody else in the dealership be successful, then my life changes. And so it started with my dealership, and then it started with through the F&I 20 group and the ethical F&I managers, Facebook pages, volunteering to be a mentor and helping anybody else that I could. And it's funny when you start doing that. It starts with one person, and then three people, and then all of a sudden you have more than sometimes you can get to effectively. It changes your outlook on life. It changes what your happiness level is. Life just changes. It's hard to explain, right? And it's the joys that used to be prior to, like, look at this really big paycheck or look at this really big year to date.
Okay, take us there because you're giving us the finished version. Your intention in the very beginning, it wasn't integrity and honesty. When you joined the car business, my opinion, especially in those eras that we went through, how long have you been in the car business? 20 years at least?
Started in 1999,
So that's
24 years.
24 years. So you have caught a little bit of the negotiations era where people didn't have any information about interest rates and values of cars and how to be smart shoppers. And all the car salespeople used the information to manipulate reality. They built perception in every customer's mind. So it was kind of like unfair advantage. Then you've also been through the race to the bottom where internet came out and then social media drove the final stage we're in today, the experience age. So because you have learned to adapt and obviously you survived, you're a vice president, so many people stay on the same level, which is such a nightmare because it's a tough business to be in. Definitely shortens your life expectancy for sure. and
Causes you to lose your
really-
hair.
and well, lose a lot of your relationships too, because of that lion's mentality, 0 to 0. The stress is so big when you don't know what your paycheck would be next month. This is what I fight against. The purpose of my company is to give salespeople and leaders stability in their life, because this is such a fun business if you're financially free.
That's right.
It's so much fun to be. You really focus on your purpose of being a steward, which I think you are, with all of the things you're involved in. And in that era, I call it the negotiations era, because we would get into negotiations early and use that as a tool to create that fear of loss or hope to gain in the buyer's mind. All those tricks they know by heart now. I think children are born with those tricks registered because the stress of their parents. It's been like recorded in the parents' genes, and the children nowadays, the Gen Z, they're just automatically afraid of car guys. It's like going to the ghetto, going to the dealership is like, check yourself.
Yeah.
You can't just walk in there unprepared. So the point that I'm trying to make is, what was your actual true intention when you got started? And I have a whole theory for, especially when you were brought up by the world, when you didn't have great leadership and you learn everything on the street, you fall for most of the traps the world has for you. I went through similar experience where I learned most things from the world. So my perception about strong man when I was growing up was, I was around a lot of bullies in high school. So I was like, the strongest guy physically, the guy that bullies everyone, is the strong man. Then I grew up a little bit more in my teenagers. It's the guy that has the most girls and sleeps with the most women is the man. Then I was under the belief system that when I started selling cars and got into business, oh no, it's the guy that has the most money is the man. The guy that goes with money, they hire security or whatever. And still be strong. Press a button and boom. After life beat me up a little bit, and humility and walking with God, I realized that a strong man is the man that takes responsibility. So we share similar belief system about that. But I remember when I walked into this industry, my intention was not the greatest, and no one in that environment would allow me to have good intentions. It just wouldn't fit with the culture.
All
So,
right.
talk about that. How did you transition? Obviously, you realize right now it's the experience age. You can't hide behind the same tricks, and especially in F&I, which that person is the person responsible for the paperwork. They put their signature there. There's like legal consequences for skipping steps and doing unethical things. So you have to comply. And that you just went with, hey, it's easier if I actually have good intentions, and you've already picked the fruits from that. But when was it the tipping point where you went from bad intention to good intention?
That's interesting, right? And how that works. And I started in '99. I was actually a porter, cleaning cars, scrubbing toilets, whatever that was. Handled the service beef. Guy yelling and screaming in the service drive. I'm the closest one to him. Pull him aside, give him a bottle of water, calm him down, take care of it. The owner sees it and says, "Kid, you need to sell cars." Well, I'm going to school to be a band director and working part time. And I'm like, well, I do. He's like, I don't care. Just work whatever schedule you can. Now, understand back then, a band director out of college probably going to make $30,000 to $35,000 a year. So my first month selling cars, I sold like 28 cars and made almost $18,000. And I said,
Wow.
well, so much for being a band director, right? And that was the beginning of the end, as we all say. And so, coming from the background I came from, of not knowing where my next meal is going to be, where am I going to sleep, where am I going to stay, that then became the new drug, right? Was the paycheck and the high of that, and being number one. And obviously the environment in a car dealership back in the '90s and early 2000s was completely different. Like you said, completely different from today. And
I call this lions mentality, because lions are like that. They eat, and then once when they're fed, they kick back, so they could never catch momentum. And that's how top producers in the car industry are. And they build a lifestyle that fits with their career and that destroys relationships. Right now you're focused on relationships, and I still want you to come back to prioritizing who is the, like, in the bullseye of your most trusted circle, and second and third and fourth priority, like what relationships are. That's a very important question to me, so I want you to go back to that. But
yeah.
first, when was the moment where you decided to switch, and then how fast did you feel relief, or how would you describe your experience with that change in mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And
So,
again, coming up in the time that we did, it's you don't know any better other than the people that are around you. And so, and my thing, like you said, being a child of the world and those types of things, it was all right. Who's the best? All right, I'm gonna figure out what you're doing, and then I'm gonna do it better because I got to beat you. And back then, the people that were the best and or how we looked at the best were the biggest sales and the biggest paycheck didn't do things right. And so, and then that changed as I became an internet manager, used car manager, new car manager, and then finally in the F&I. And, obviously in F&I, especially back in those days, there were no rules per se, and it was lie, cheat, and steal as much as you can because you need to decapitate every customer and we're going to crush these people. And I just made an 8 pounder and, all the different things, right? And screw everybody else. You go get yours because that's all that matters. And when that's all you know in a business that you're starting in, that's adopted to that. And it's that same moment we just talked about when I decided to be a student of my profession and it's not about me anymore. It's about everybody else.
so
And
at what moment did that change? What was the point where do you remember like a light switch shift, an event that took place, or do you think it gradually happened?
I
Gradually.
can tell you the exact dealership, office, salesperson, and situation.
Okay, that's what we're looking for here, the meat and the potatoes.
I was in Illinois, so I was at Rosen Hyundai up in Algonquin, and I got a sales guy that's been in the business longer than I've probably been alive. And with that, same old school mentality, paperwork's never right, all the things, right? That the deal comes in half-assed. It's always a story and an excuse, and it's a cash deal on top of it. And we start arguing, and I take the deal bag and I throw it at him and throw it in his face, and the paperwork goes everybody everywhere. And now we're getting ready to tussle, and I, got to stop myself from saying I'm not going to get in a fight with a 65-year-old man, right? Like this is absurd. And I screw this. Obviously, there was some other colorful language that was going on, and walked out of the dealership, took a couple laps around the building, sat in my car for a little bit, and all of a sudden, as I'm sitting there, it was, what the hell are you doing? You're getting yourself stressed out and angry and pissed off, and you're mad all the time, and everybody else is screwed up. It dawned on me in that moment that if everybody else isn't doing it right, it's my fault. I have a title that says manager. I'm supposed to be a leader.
Yeah,
And that was the first realization for me that there's a difference between being a manager and being a leader. And you dust yourself off. You got to put your tail between your legs. You got to swallow your pride and your dignity, and you got to walk back in there and go, "Hey, man, come here. What, you still want to? No, sit down. I'm sorry. I'm an asshole." And I just realized that, and I apologize.
and I have to live with myself, huh?
I as I'm sitting there and we're arguing and egos are getting in the way, and that's the downfall of so many people and groups is ego. And as I sat there and I was literally in my car trembling, I was so upset, right? And I'm trembling, and it just, I remember I called a couple people, I'm yelling and screaming and cussing and whining, right? And they said some key things that stuck, and it just dawned on me in that moment of what the hell are you doing? First, and you realize as a finance manager, my number one customer is actually all the salespeople on the floor. Without them, I have nothing to do, right? And it started that journey in that moment on that deal where I was either going to get knocked out or knock out a 65-year-old guy, and in the middle of some stupidity over missing documents, and it's a cash deal, and it's my sixth one in a row, and all those things. That moment of clarity came of stop what you're doing, help them. And it was almost instant, right? And the difficulty is you try to change who you are and what your purpose in the dealership is that day or the next day, and everybody doesn't believe you. Just yesterday, you were the guy throwing deal bags out of your office and yelling and screaming at everybody. Now all of a sudden, you want to help everybody, and so part of that is eating the pride and the dignity and the ego, and going, you know what, you guys are right. I was wrong. I'm a jerk.
So
But now allow me the opportunity to fix that.
is that what makes somebody a jerk and an asshole? Is it pride and ego?
I wouldn't say just that, right? Treatment of others, and a lot of that it comes from, again, when you just care about yourself and nobody around you. I would say, yeah, you're that person. It's nobody's going to get through this life on their own. You're going to need other people. And those people are the ones that only become your friend when they need something, right? And we all know people in our lives that are that. You don't hear from them. You don't hear from them. All of a sudden the phone rings or you get a text message and, hey, man, it's been great, man. How the hell you been? Hey, man, I really need you for something. That's that person, right? They care about themselves. They don't care about others. And yeah, you know what? You're an ass. I'm out. Thanks.
I know. When two car guys get together, the stories start, and I know that maybe some of our viewers are not in the car industry, so I wanted to go back to your personal life. Tell me a little bit. No, tell me actually about a certain moment. Which moment whether it's good or bad, would you like to go back to and have another chance to relive? You can change the circumstances.
That's a great question. Wow. What would I like to, good or bad, and relive? I mean, there's certainly great moments that I'd love to go back through again just because they were great moments. I met my wife in a car dealership. I sold her a car. So, going through all that was certainly great moments and a pivotal opportunity that changed my life. Certainly haven't done things right through my life. And so going back to, like that person that put their arm around me that was my percussion and drum instructor, that relationship didn't end well. So I'd love the opportunity to go back and do that differently and change how that went. And certainly plenty of times back that part of my life where I was that person that I only saw you because I needed something, and I took advantage of people or situations as a mechanism of survival.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'd certainly love the opportunity to go back and do those things different with an asterisk, right? And I say that because I went through those things and did those things in certain ways because I had to learn those lessons from that to
Of
be where
course.
I am now, right? So that's the difficulty in that. I'd love to right wrongs that I did to people that I took advantage of, or situations I took advantage of, which we can still have the opportunity to do now, but I don't know if I would change it because then I wouldn't be here.
Well, then there's no judgment or condemnation from this end right here. Okay, I have done just as bad things or worse. Who knows? But my point is, you have is this person still alive?
Yes.
You have the opportunity to make things right still. Do you have that person's contact information?
It's funny you say that. 10 years ago, maybe. This is from South Florida. They're from Illinois. As you know, I spent 20 something years in Illinois. I
I'm
ran
sorry
in,
about that.
I ran into a relative of theirs and actually got their email address.
Okay.
And so, being completely vulnerable here, I've written this person 100+ emails and haven't brought myself to hit send on any of them yet.
Oh, come on.
And,
Today's the days.
and it's something that I have to do, and it's as dumb as it sounds, it's because we talk, as we both coach people through life about not having that fear of those types of things. Here I am, haven't sent that stupid email for that fear, and so
And what are you gonna do today?
we're gonna send that email today.
Woo! We're gonna send that email today. All right. We are sending that email today. Time to let go of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you made that decision. He needs to know that it's more about you forgiving yourself for ending the relationship in that way, because that's not part of who you are. You are different now. You're not the same person who ended the relationship like that. You have grown in wisdom. You have grown in maturity. You have grown in Christ. So you are so much different now. And that version of you does not tolerate anything. You confidently
That's true.
committed in front of all the viewers today. You
Right.
promised publicly with your one hand on your heart, the other hand in the Bible. You can't see his hands, but that's what he's doing right now. He's holding one.
I,
And
I am in a hotel, so I do have the opportunity
you
to grab one.
promised to send that email today, and who knows what's going to happen afterwards. Maybe he will come along and come around.
And I'll go a step further. I'll commit to updating our chat group, the group for this podcast, on the outcome of that.
We are expecting that from you. Accountability is a big
That's
part
right. That's right.
from leadership. So we're expecting from you to share a screenshot in the chat group so we could see the evidence that you sent the email. And we'll be also curious about the response. Also, request in the email more methods of communication and search with the email Facebook, LinkedIn, if you haven't yet, Snitch, Mitch, Twitch, all these platforms, Snap, and maybe you'll find him somewhere there. You'll be surprised.
I do know he's not on social, but I think his wife may be. So
Yeah, search him up. Sometimes Google will make, or somebody else will make a profile. You just don't know what you're pressing, and sometimes it happens. But either way, it'll be good for you to let go of that. What would you love to do with all of your time for the rest of your life?
the first part of that is, again, be the person that can help as many people as I can to be successful in whatever that is, not just business or in life, and be a resource for that. Certainly, spend time with my family and create experiences for us as a family and for my children, and make sure that they set and for their life and have a good, the same core set of beliefs that help them be great human beings in the world. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but like where I am professionally and those things right now, I'm doing it. I've got work at a great company with the opportunity to help thousands of people around the country and growing, an amazing family that I get to spend time with and have experiences with, and have great friendships and people I get to call close friends of mine that I truly value. And so I still have to pinch myself every now and then to realize that, because going through this, right, and I say that to say this is, it's interesting. There are days I wake up and I still, I pinch myself and say, this isn't supposed to be my life.
Why not?
I say that, but then it causes reflection, right? Because I'm supposed to be a statist, right? I'm supposed to be a victim. I'm supposed to be all of those things if you ask most people in the world, right? And part of what still drives me to continue to push and do those things is, and again, it ties into that fakeness of social media. I'm just one mistake away from being homeless again and not knowing where my next meal is coming from. So continuing to push and drive, but it's understanding again that all those things that you go through and the darkness and those things, those all happen for a reason, right? To get you to the next place that you need to be. And again, it's being able. I'm going to be trying to coach and mentor people until the day I'm not breathing anymore, right? Because that's truly my passion. And again, making sure that my family wants for nothing and needs for nothing, and that I can instill those same types of beliefs and qualities in my children and in my family.
That's awesome. By the way, I just tagged you into post so you can check it out. It's really relevant to what we're talking about. Just watch it and then get back to me what you think about it.
You got it.
But share with us about your circles of relationships. Like I actually like to call them circles of love. So how do you prioritize your relationships? Is it more important for you to be a son, brother, father? What is most important relationship in your life with whom? And then the second and third and the fourth, if you have to prioritize them, if there are 4 or 5 doors and each door has a different role. One of the doors says VP, the other door says leader, the other door says husband, the other door says father. Which door, if you have to choose only one door, you would enter? Which one is the most valuable relationship in your life?
It's that's family. That's my wife and children are first. Sometimes it doesn't seem that way because we still have to do what we do for work, and I travel every week and those things. But everything that I do is based around that relationship of being with them, providing for them, being a father, being a husband. Not and for me, coming up the way that I did is without really having parents and really seeing. A lot of times we learn the best way to do things from seeing it done the wrong way, right? So
Yeah.
I made a commitment to myself back then that if I ever had the opportunity to be a father, that I would be the father that I wished I always had. That's extremely important to me, and I've certainly made plenty of mistakes in that, and but that's part of relationships. And what do you want to do now? I want to make sure that those mistakes I can fix, and be the best father and husband that I can be.
So you would enter the father door.
That's tough.
Yes, depending on children's age, right?
They're, they're,
If they're 24, you're probably gonna enter the husband.
it's the husband one because my kids are 26 and 22, so it's
You enter the husband door.
husband doors first.
You gotta save it with the wife.
It's the husband door first.
Good. So tell me then, how do you prioritize? How do you manage your time? Where do you spend the most time? Where would you, if you can, like perfect case scenario, you're doing well right now, but if you don't have to go to work because you have 30 billion in the bank, what would you be doing with all of your time?
It's a great question. Obviously, the time with my wife and my children, I'd still be spending time with trying to help people, coaching, mentoring. I'd be spending time volunteering in the church. I'm an avid golfer, so I'd be spending some time doing that. Fitness is certainly something that's become important again. One of the things I probably didn't share with you earlier is in February I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and
You were?
I was, and made some life changes, and by the end of May, the diabetes was gone. So
Nice.
that's certainly changed the focus. In health is certainly an important part of everything else that we do. And again, in our industry, that's something that gets taken advantage of. Being on the road all the time and eating and drinking like an idiot and not working out and doing those things, it took its toll. And, so spending time making sure that health and fitness is certainly a part of that, and trying to bring great experiences to as many people as I can with.
That's awesome. I'm glad you changed your lifestyle. Well, a lot of people surrender to diabetes. It's a huge industry, and the reason why I call it industry is because so many people take it as a condition that could not be avoided or prevented. But here you are, a real example, real life example that you can beat diabetes if you change your lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I'm not a big advocate of going to doctors as a whole in my life. um,
Why is that?
I just never have. And then, I think I've shared with you, my wife is now a 4-time cancer survivor. And back at that point in time, she was going through cancer treatments. And, I knew I was overweight and wasn't healthy. And I made the decision that I'm of the age now that I need to go see doctors and we need to get our health taken care of. And, it's a funny story as I'm sitting there with the doctor and I'm like, listen, doc, here's what you're going to tell me. I'm overweight. My cholesterol's high. My liver enzymes are high, all these things. Right. And so we're going through the question and answer and it gets to the point where he says, well, do you drink? I'm like, yep. He goes, how much? I said, in what time frame? he goes, how about a week? And I go, geez, I don't know, 30? And of course, the look on his face was, what? And I said, well, let me explain what I do. I travel the country and I entertain clients and I do training. And so it's a couple beverages before dinner or a couple bottles of wine during dinner. So that's 2 or 3 glasses of wine, a couple beverages after dinner. And you do that 4 or 5 times a week. And then I went, well, I probably have a couple at home. It's probably closer to 40, doc. And he starts laughing. He says, nobody ever answers that honestly. I wouldn't be coming to you if I was going to lie to you that we can't get straightened out. And so did all the blood work and I come back and I wasn't necessarily shocked by the diabetes diagnosed, but I was taken back. I wasn't prepared, right? Because that's, well, what does that mean? And they were less than forthcoming with information about how my life was supposed to change. So thankfully there's the internet and all those things. And
Yeah.
since then I've lost almost 60 pounds and changed my eating habits and done those things and hell bent it's never coming back, right? So
Frank the Tank is not coming back?
it's not coming back, and it's living life in moderation, right? But I have this, I call it a disease, right? And people that know me are going to laugh when they hear this. I don't have an in between. Whatever I'm going to do, it's either going to be at 185% or zero.
Mm.
And it's good or bad, right? If I'm going to focus on putting together something to help coach somebody, it's going to be 185%. If I'm going drinking, it's 185%. If I'm eating, it's 185%. If I'm going to be lazy and do nothing, it's at 185%. There's if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it all the way, and both a blessing and a curse, right? And so making the decision to get healthy was one of those things. Now it's 185%. So it's.
Well, tell me what are your core values? What are the things that you value the most in life? And if you don't know exactly what these things are, what are your pet peeves? What are the things that really get you worked up? Because usually it's the opposite of those things.
So I'll start with the pet peeves and then we'll go into the core values. So, and it's funny, I share this with anybody that's going to come work with us, right? Because it's the same in my personal life as business life. And number one is indecision. I can't stand indecision. And, in work, obviously it's, in the car business, we're in the now business. If somebody's calling with an issue, I'd rather you make a decision and it be wrong and we'll talk through it and fix it than not make a decision at all, right? And
Right.
but in the personal life, it's hey honey, what do you want to eat? I don't care, whatever you want. Well, let's do that. No, that the waffling of, well, what if we do this? Well, but what if this happens? Or what if that happens? Oh my God, just decide on one and let's move on with our life, right? Because it's.
But she wants you to decide.
And it's not just, that's a great example that I think most of us can relate to. And
when you do that when you're in the same situation next time, just come up with 2 places that you want to go and give her alternatives. I mean, some sales guys just don't give alternatives.
No, I'm going to give you the better solution that I find that works every time. Honey, we're going to dinner tonight. Where are we going? It's a surprise. Well, tell me where I'm going. Guess. And whatever the first guess is, oh my God, you're right. That's where we're going, because that's where they really want to
go. That's better. I agree. That's better.
So that's a free tip for all the husbands and boyfriends out there listening.
Touche.
So indecision is the first one. It's the waffling back and forth, right? Because I just want to make a decision, and so that we can move on from whatever this is and go to the next thing. So indecision is the first one. The second one's 2 parts. For pet peeves, is it's drama and whiny baby bullshit. Like it's whining and crying, and it's everybody else's fault, and the creating of drama with just all the BS. There's the creating of drama with ain't nobody got time for that, right? Is the way that play that drives me absolutely insane. It's we're all adults. Let's act like it. Nobody needs extra drama. And then the third one for me, it's a pet peeve is honesty. Don't ever lie to me because I trust wholeheartedly, but once you lie to me, I have a very difficult time going back. Like once that trust is broached, in my brain I'll always then have doubts. You know,
Trust is the hardest thing to build.
it
But
is.
nice compliment.
And some people say, well, I'm going to wait to trust somebody and I'm going to love and trust and care wholeheartedly until you give me a reason not to.
Who do you trust with your bank account?
My wife,
Who do you trust with your wife?
my wife. No, I'm fortunate to have a great close circle of
Who would you trust of giving your wife a ride?
I again have a very fortunate close group of friends that there's a handful of them out there. Certainly those great people in my life for sure.
Who do you trust with your deepest secrets?
Probably that same group, and then also my wife, and that's an important part of this, right? As we're talking about overcoming things and how do you come out of that is allowing people to get close to you, right? Because when we're in those dark, and you went through the same thing, we become so closed off because, like you said, in our time, men can't show emotion, men can't be vulnerable, men can't be all these things, and so we grow up with that of being closed off and borders and these walls. And I was that way for a long time, and we don't ever allow ourselves to have those amazing close relationships because we don't let people in. And what you'll find is when you do that, and again, it's not to everybody because not everybody's your friend or your best friend or your closest friend, but when you open yourself up to the opportunity for that, you then get to see who those real people are. And that circle, while it still remains small, can grow. And there's a power in that, and there's a beauty in that, and there's a freedom in that, if you will, of
Yeah,
having that, right? Like I know that there's 6 to 10, maybe 12 people that if I thought the world was coming to an end for me because I either screwed something up or whatever was going on, that I can call any of these people at any time. And not only will they pick up the phone, they'll listen, they'll give sage advice, they'll be a shoulder, they'll be all those things. And that in itself is extremely powerful.
yeah. How important is to have that support group in life? To have
It's
people you can trust for.
it's pivotal to survival and any kind of sanity, really, right? We all want to be the tough guy or tough girl or whatever that is, but I was an angry person for a really really long time, right? And had an extremely short fuse with everybody for everything, and that's because I kept all that pent up. I didn't share with anybody, and it adds up. And like now people laugh or ask me because it's the opposite. Like nothing really gets to you. You're so calm, cool, and collected all the time. And how do you do that? And, it's my family laughs at me because there's a cliche saying, but it really is where it comes from. It is what it is, so screw it, right? Like if there's all these things that are going to happen to you or around you that you have zero control over, right? I can only control what I can control. And so if these other things around me are going to that I can't control, why am I going to let it inside and bother me? Because it is what it is. That I can't do anything about that. I'm not even going to give it another thought or think about it or let it affect me. I'm going to control the things that I can control, right? And that changes your interactions with everybody around you, right? If you're just an angry person all the time, nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to get in close, right? And so, that's where a lot of that.
Well, then, it's been an hour, and usually that's where we say goodbye. Is there anything that you would like to share with our viewers right now as a summary of wisdom? What are the main advices you would want to give to all the viewers? If you have 3, 4 life lessons, how would you formulate those life lessons as advice?
If you're in that dark place or that difficulty, understand it's not the end, that it's for a purpose. And with that, open yourself to the people around you. Vulnerability is not a bad thing. Reflection is a powerful tool of not just the why me or the woe is me, but what lesson can I learn from whatever this experience is now or what it was before, and how can I apply that moving forward? And if you're not in a dark place or going through troubles now, be that person for somebody else, right? Like one of my team said something in one of our meetings that for personal mental safety that every night before bed, he looks in the mirror and he says, something great is going to happen to you tomorrow. Something great. And then understanding what that something great is. It might be that it's Saturday, you're at Costco and you actually got the front parking space. That might have been the great thing for the day. But now if you take that to the next level and not only believe that, but then say, how can I be that great thing in somebody else's day? And that might be something as small as you're walking by somebody and say, your hair looks amazing, or that outfit is great, or you have beautiful eyes, or hey, you know what, really nice job on whatever that thing that was, right? If allowing yourself to be that bright spot in somebody else's day will bring joy and satisfaction back into your life. Being open to better yourself and those people around you. And again, if you can find a way to be that person for somebody else, you will find that the joy in your life completely changes.
So, your main advice is if you are in a position of self pity, go and help someone who's in a worse position, right? In Proverbs 11:25, it says, "He who refreshes others is refreshed himself." So, refresh others when you're down, like magic comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah, as bad as we think we are in a position, somebody else is wishing that they had your life, right? They're in a worse position that wishes they could get to be where you are as you're doing the same for somebody else. So I'm just telling you, it's amazing when you make it about those around you. What comes back to you is really, it's incredible. It really is.
Well, it's been awesome hearing your story, Dan, and definitely I picked up a lot.